Our first guest this evening needs little introduction. He's only the doyen of American journalists. He is the royal family of American journalists. He is the best investigative reporter at the head of the best journalistic house in the United States, the Grey Zone. It's Max Blumenthal, and I'm glad to say he joins me now. Where do we start, Max? In an ordinary day, we'd start with the armada that the United States has sent to the coast of Venezuela. We'd start with the Trump Tower that he's going to build in the Gaza Strip. We'd start on all number of things. But we've got to start on the Epstein Affair. He's in big trouble now, don't you think?
He is, and hope I can live up to that introduction. Jeffrey Epstein has resurfaced again in a very dramatic way, and Donald Trump is trying to bury him by making frantic phone calls to Nancy Mace and Lauren Boebert. I'm just learning about this. I've just learned about this in the last few minutes. Lauren Boebert, the Republican from Colorado, who is trying to channel the anger of the MAGA base about the failure or refusal of Trump to release the Epstein files, has signed a petition which has a majority, it appears, of members of Congress calling for a release of these files. And the Trump administration is trying to prevent the seating of a Democratic representative who won an election in Arizona, Alita Grijalva, preventing her, and by preventing her from being seated, will prevent this vote from reaching a critical mass to release the full Epstein files and Epstein client list. And so it's pretty clear what Trump is afraid of here, and more emails continue to come out from the collection of Michael Wolff, the New York City socialite and journalist who was a close associate of Jeffrey Epstein. In some of the emails, he appears to be providing counsel to Jeffrey Epstein. He has previously alleged that he had Polaroids or was shown Polaroids by Jeffrey Epstein of Donald Trump with underage girls seated on his lap by Epstein's pool. But now these emails are coming out showing that there's one email from Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell acknowledging that Trump knew about abuse that had taken place on his island, I believe, that Trump knew there were quote unquote victims. There's another email which shows that Tom Barak, who is Trump's envoy to Lebanon and is handling Turkey affairs, was a close Epstein associate, closer than we knew. In 2021, I think Tom Barak was rung up by the Justice Department for failing to register as a lobbyist for the United Arab Emirates, and he seemed to be kind of a connection for Epstein in the Gulf. Epstein had, according to some of these emails, gifted him a $11,000 watch and asked him for baby pictures. I don't know what that was referring to. But, this is all coming out in a trickle, and it could soon become a flood that will continue to consume the Trump administration and totally demoralize Trump's base.
Well, if Fuentes, the far-right fellow who's become quite famous recently, people being blacklisted for mentioning his name or talking to him. If Fuentes is correct, and I think he is, objectively, the second term of Donald Trump is a complete dumpster fire. It is a complete disaster. Everything he's touching is turning to SH1T. And no wonder the MAGA ranks are revolting.
Yeah, I mean, the real collapse of not just the second term of Donald Trump, but Trump's whole mystique began in July when the FBI under Kash Patel signed a memo with the DOJ under Pam Bondi not to release the Epstein files. And ever since then, it's just been all downhill because the base, and particularly America Firsters who are under 40, could no longer see them as credible. They were promised these files, not only by Trump, but by Kash Patel, the FBI director, who promised in podcast interview after podcast interview an unprecedented disclosure that would destroy the deep state. Patel even started his own foundation promising legal actions against the deep state. And now look at what Kash Patel's doing. He's hiding behind his girlfriend, this wannabe country singer, Alexis Wilkins, using her as a proxy through the chair of his legal foundation, who is his personal lawyer, to file $5 million lawsuits against America First podcasters, not, liberal deep state villains, but podcasters on the right, because they mocked his girlfriend as a Mossad honeypot. And the issue of Israel is at the center of everything here. It's completely compromised, if not upended, the so-called America First agenda, because everyone under 35 who's on the right sees that Trump is serving a foreign country. And Epstein, what was he? It looks like he was Mossad adjacent. Stories emerging about Israeli spies staying at his house, about Jeffrey Epstein serving as a back channel to Russia on behalf of Ehud Barak, the former Israeli prime minister. These emails, by the way, they're all out there in an email leak of hacked emails from former Israeli prime ministers. And the mainstream media hadn't really touched this. Now it's all coming out, and it's pretty clear that Israel's at the center of this, and this is partly what is propelling figures like Nick Fuentes to the forefront. It's sort of like there's this rebellion taking place on the right. It's not just, Nick Fuentes. It's like the son of Nikki Haley is openly revolting against Trump and the pro-Israel right. The son of Nikki Haley who called to finish them, referring to the people of Gaza. One of the most fanatically pro-Israel politicians, the former South Carolina governor and UN ambassador in Trump's first term. Her son just gave an interview, he's like 17 years old, saying Israel's not actually a US ally. Israel is just another country, and it doesn't serve our interests. This is just happening across the board among young people. There's this rebellion on the left with the election of Zohran Mamdani in New York, and there's a rebellion on the right that is just fracturing the right from within.
It's a wildfire, really, isn't it? And it's not going to be extinguished by phone calls to Nancy Mace. Anybody who now, after this, votes not to release the Epstein files is signing their political death warrant. It's an act of political suicide, isn't it?
It is. They will lose credibility. This is one of the few things that unites Americans across the political divide, is the desire to get to the bottom of the case of Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein, to Americans on the left and the right, he represents an unaccountable, perverse, socially decadent and deviant elite that exists above the law. He represents something so much bigger than whatever he was. And they want accountability. And to the extent that their representatives won't deliver it and are afraid of it, well, they're in on the game. And in Trump's case, he directly was in on it. It's very clear that Donald Trump is hiding something. And he has even gone out and attacked members of his base as morons for seeking disclosure on the Epstein files. It's also not just the Epstein files. They feel frustrated about the JFK files, frustrated about so many other supposed deep state plots. And Trump is now consumed in creating new plots of his own. After indicting John Bolton, the self-proclaimed coup-monger, proud coup-monger, Trump went out and fulfilled John Bolton's greatest wet dream in dispatching a carrier fleet attack group to the shores of Venezuela. What is going on there? Well, President Gustavo Petro, the leftist president of Colombia, who has been personally sanctioned by Trump for insulting him, and for complaining about Trump murdering Colombian citizens on the high seas, falsely accusing them of being drug dealers, has said that this entire show of force against Venezuela is a distraction by a pedophile elite which is seeking to conceal the Epstein files. So this is now an international scandal that goes well beyond U.S. Congress.
Indeed so. I wish we could talk about that issue all night, but I want to talk about one or two other things with you, if I may. You very acutely observed that Israel is at the center of all of this. And of course, Israel is at the center of the man who just appeared in the hallowed halls, if they are hallowed, of the White House. I refer, of course, to the erstwhile deputy leader of both Al-Qaeda and ISIS, not a bad double that one, who, to my amazement, the U.S. embassy in Damascus still has his wanted poster on their website. $10 million you would have got for catching him just a few months ago. And now Donald Trump is squirting Trump perfume on him and joshing about how many wives Jolani has got. This Jolani revolution, which we were told was some kind of blessed revolution, was an American-Israeli job, wasn't it?
Absolutely. It was a NATO job for sure, because of Turkish involvement in Sirlik Air Base. That's where the arms flowed to Jabhat al-Nusra, which was Jolani's gang in Syria. So yeah, absolutely. Nobody bats an eye. I mean, there's no controversy about this in Washington at all. You're right. Quick correction on something I said before. Nikki Haley's son's 24, not 17. But I wrote a book that came out in 2019 called The Management of Savagery, and the headline, the subheadline is How America's National Security State Fueled the Rise of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and Donald Trump. And now the former founder of Al-Qaeda's Syrian branch, which carried out heinous atrocities inside Syria, who is also the co-founder of ISIS, has met personally with Donald Trump in the Oval Office and been granted a friendly interview by Fox News, which just 1 week ago was cranking the Islamophobia up to 11 over the election of a much more secular LGBT-friendly figure named Zohran Mamdani as mayor of New York. So this has really bookended the story of the CIA backing jihadists starting at least in 1979, if not sooner, in Afghanistan, in order to weaken geopolitical foes, destroy independent countries, crush secular governments across the Muslim world, and shatter, destabilize previously strong states that were not aligned with the U.S. and were not handing over their oil to U.S. businessmen. And Jabhat al-Nusra founder Ahmed al-Sharaa, formerly known as Mohammed Jolani, has passed all of the tests of the predatory U.S. elite, which also includes the tests of the Zionist regime. And that means that he can now be welcomed into the White House. These tests include a willingness to take out loans with the IMF, and so he met the IMF's director 2 days ago, a willingness to cut contracts with American companies and privatize what's left of Syria's assets, which were devastated through U.S. sanctions, to allow Israel to occupy the Golan Heights and take Mount Hermon, which deprives Syria of deterrence against Israel, to not fire one single shot against Israeli soldiers as they advance close to the suburbs of Damascus, to also function under NATO stewardship through Turkish intelligence, and to ultimately join the Abraham Accords, which could be more appropriately described as the Epstein Accords. That's what Ahmed Sharaa has signed on to. Syria as a state, which was once the last strong independent Arab nation, is gone, and it will be balkanized. And I wonder how long Ahmed Sharaa himself will last, given the amount of pressure on him from within and without, because I'm not sure the Syrians, how long the Syrian people can take this level of indignity.
Well, he's in a vice because his ISIS and Al Qaeda base, all these Uyghurs that he's brought there and given citizenship, and these foreign fighters from every stan, and indeed from farther afield in Europe and maybe North America, definitely one from Australia, whom I saw holding up two severed heads in a picture just the other day. So he's got them as one kind of pressure, and there's the pressure that must inevitably come from the fact that a sophisticated, Levantine, moderate Muslim society like Syria cannot be governed by people with the take religiously of the Taliban and of ISIS and Al Qaeda. Syrians are just not that kind of people.
And that's his project. I think that's the compromise he's willing to make, is to sell off Syria's sovereignty economically and politically, and in exchange, he will get to transform the more heavily populated areas of Syria under his realm into miniature Kandahars. And we've seen these scenes at University of Homs and elsewhere of Takfiri forces essentially imposing a new dress code and gender segregation in these previously secular spaces. That's the project, but it will also be rejected by Syrians who, whatever their view of the Assad family might have been, enjoyed life in the pluralistic mosaic that had previously existed, particularly Christians. And with Donald Trump in power, promising military strikes against Nigeria for supposed Islamist attacks on Christians, which actually appear to be land disputes, there's a lot of pressure on al-Shura to maintain the safety of the Christian, what's left of the Christian community. I mean, he can do whatever he wants to the Alawites, who were slaughtered in the thousands just several months ago. But the Christians, he can't touch them, because that risks everything with the U.S. Al-Shura is also making a big show of his support for the barely existent Syrian Jewish community. This is obviously a play for American Jewish support and Trump's support. And then, as you mentioned, he has these muhajirin, the foreign fighters. There are thousands of them. Most of them are Uyghur, very radical forces from Xinjiang in China, from the East Turkestan Islamic Party, which was carrying out mass casualty terrorist attacks in China before they were crushed there, and they ultimately moved to Idlib. I actually interviewed one of their self-styled helpers, whose name is Bilal Abdul Karim. He was an American from New York who converted to Islam and ultimately wound up in Syria and was one of the key journalists embedded with the armed opposition Al-Qaeda-aligned forces in Aleppo and Idlib. And he was actually jailed under al-Shura in Idlib, treated horribly. He has sort of testified to torture in al-Shura's prisons, a lack of freedom. He told me that he sees al-Shura replicating the cronyism and repression of the Assad era. And he calls himself a representative of these foreign helpers and fighters, and they are all applying for Syrian citizenship. They want to become citizens of Syria and to impose their agenda. He maintains that they'll be able to live with the Christians, but I have not seen that before, and given their track record in Idlib, it's pretty grim, where Christians were forced to convert or be killed. You saw Druze in Idlib be forced to dig up their ancestors' graves because they were not buried according to this strict interpretation of Islamic custom. So if that's applied to the rest of Syria, I think this thing unravels pretty quickly.